Voting rights are a fascinating subject that have gotten lots and lots of attention of late in this country. It's such a controversial subject, and it's such an essential question, who gets to vote, that essentially what our constitutional conventioneers did is they punted. They left it with the states. Article 1 has a very generic statement, and right near the front of it, I think it's Article 1, Section 1 or 2, that says the only requirement for the electors, that is the people who get to vote in any given state, is that they've got to be the same qualifications as the state itself imposes on electors for its more numerous house.
The most important thing to remember about eligibility to vote at the time of the creation of the Constitution was voting was somewhat of a privilege to a limited number of people, primarily property owners, white males, among the several states. And the eligibility to vote was really decided at the state level. So the delegates come to Philadelphia with their set sense of voting eligibility. And it's still after the Constitution. The Constitution says basic things, but it doesn't create a list of requirements to be able to vote.
One of the things I find really interesting is that a lot of the American history textbooks fail to see what the actual situation was at the time of the founding, because most states had property requirements for voting. They were fairly minimal because property wasn't that hard to get in the United States with all the land. But who held property? Was it only white males? No. There were women who held property, and there were free blacks who held property. New Jersey, for example, when they wrote a state constitution in 1776, gave the right to vote to all free inhabitants, and that included women and blacks.
Over time, on at least 4 separate occasions, the United States Constitution has been amended because we've recognized that the states really weren't doing the right thing by voting. The first of those amendments was, of course, after the Civil War, the 15th Amendment, which gave African American men the right to vote. Then a number of decades later, the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote, both white women and African American women and all other women. A few years later, the 24th Amendment abolished poll taxes, which were one major impediment that was especially being applied in the Jim Crow South. And then finally, the 26th Amendment in 1971 actually said that anybody of the age of 18 would have to be allowed to vote. So we, bit by bit, on a national level, have extended the franchise to more and more people. But to this day, it remains controversial, and we still have lots of federal and state statutes that deal with voting.
Well, originally senators were chosen by state legislatures, and of course that changed with the 17th Amendment, and now they're directly elected. This was part of the role that the states would have, the influence that the states would have in national legislation. Southern states were particularly concerned about the peculiar institution and making sure that they had one house in the national legislature that could maybe put the brakes on what some of the northern states might want to do about the problem with slavery. But anyway, now state legislatures don't choose senators. They're directly elected, and there's less of a role for the states in that process.
The Constitution only provides that there will be a certain number of congressmen for each state. And the state has the ability to elect them all at large. And simply, if you have 8 congressmen, you could have the top 8 vote-getters statewide become your congressman, or to divide the state up into districts. States have decided to divide themselves into districts, but it's totally a matter of state law as to what the districts will be. And that has resulted in remarkable game playing over the drawing of those lines. Now with computer assistance and modeling, it has only become ever more sophisticated and has resulted in essentially a permanent class of congressmen who can't be beaten because their districts have been designed to be unassailable.